Alright, you guys, we're back on this. We're having some major camera issues today. We're having SD cards not formatting, and you name it, we got the problem with our cameras. But what we're doing, we're trying to get this rest of this floor out of here. He doesn't want it in there. So I couldn't get these bolts undone, so I just plows the top of these little covers. So we get to the bolts. We got both sides out, and then I hacked away at this framework that he has because all this is garbage. Yeah. So I'm hoping that it's undone from there. I might have to cut this into smaller sections to get it out from behind this gas tank. Or we might actually have to unbolt the gas tank. I'm not sure yet. We got the cut up here done. So we cut all the way along the back of the cab essentially. There's some horns right here that he left on. I'm working on drawing some lines so I can get those cut through, get these out of the way. And the main reason we're taking this floor out is for those shocks, because I got to figure out some way to mount the shocks to the axle onto some kind of bar up here. So we'll be making upper mounts for this. You guys get to see my tube emitter because we're going to bend some tube. It's pretty cool. We'll see how it works. Last time I used it, I had a major hydraulic leak in it. I've recently rebuilt it. I took it to a local shop. They didn't even know how to pull the cylinder apart. So I finally figured out, I talked to actually the buddy that helped me with the coil springs, and we looked at it, kind of hemmed hawed through it, and he's like, yeah, take these screws out, let's see what happens. So I did. Starting to hail. I don't know if you guys can hear it on my tin roof, but it is just ting, 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 ting. We'll have to go out and see how bad it is here in a minute. But yeah, you'll see, we're going to bend some tubes for these upper shock hoops, and then we're going to make a rear tire mount back there. So we're going to be bending up some tube. We're going to try to come up with something pretty cool. Let's go out and see the hail. Or it's probably just snow BBs. Probably what it is. Oh, maybe it's just rain. Oh yeah, it's just raining.
Weird.
Yeah, it
sounds like hail in there.
Pin on the roof.
Well, that was kind of disappointing.
Yeah. Not good enough ground. Yay! Nothing funner than hacking on someone else's stuff. Yeah, that floor's starting to come out too now. We'll go get that other. Yeah, we got the gas tank holding that back up. I don't know, I might split this down the middle here. Yeah, I don't know. We'll keep hacking at it, we'll get it out of there. Yeah, there's one piece. Actually, that's the second piece. Cycle bin. Look at that, now there's some room in there.
Slowly but surely.
Yeah, I might end up packing this thing right there to get that piece out. And this one. I don't know, a little scabby. Cut this one too. Got two horns down here.
Lose your Sharpie?
Found it. Nope.
Lost it again.
Alright. Wow, it's raining good now.
It's really coming down.
Holy cow. I don't know if you guys can hear that on the video, but it is raining hard. Those must be some big raindrops.
Well, yeah, the ground's wet now. Oh, that's hail.
The hail. Sure you don't want to pull in your rice rocket there?
Eh.
You don't want any dents in that thing. Pretty.
Yeah, super pretty. Dylan's car looks like a beater, but it's not bad. them really small pellets. That's weird.
I think we're gonna do this, so we're gonna mount that shock right there. And then I'm gonna build some brackets that kind of come up this way and bolt through. That'll allow him to add another shock next to it, because he's talking about moving those. Taking that tube out, moving this radiator. I don't know, he's got a lot of ideas. I'm just mainly trying to get this one set of shocks mounted for him. I'm trying to put this bar in here and make some kind of bracket. I've never really done this before, so I don't know where the length of the shock's supposed to be. When he was here, we did that, and that's where he said he wanted them, so, which is good. It puts the bottom of this tube at the bottom of the frame, so hopefully it hit the bump stop before it bottoms this out. I don't think it'll ever go that far. He is missing a bump stop on this side, so if it comes up that high, he's hitting frame to frame, so, or frame to axle. So I don't know how that's gonna work. It's, like I said, it's not something I've done before, so yeah, we'll see. That's about the middle of the stroke of this thing. That's where he said he wanted it. So that's what I'm building.
Well,
whatever the customer wants, that's what I'm building, so. But he didn't really have an idea how to mount it here, so I'm kind of, I had this bend on a piece of tube. I bent this side, which I wish we could have showed you. We were having some camera problems, so. I'm just trying to get the notches right. This side's a little high still, so I got to notch this side more to bring it down. Yeah. We'll get back to you guys once I get this tacked in, and maybe the lower mounts and the upper mounts just kind of tacked in so you can see what it's going to look like. I may tie a bar from here to here. I don't know. We'll see what this tire rack out here is going to look like, because I may tie the bars back into that shock hoop, into the cage. There's going to be a lot of bars back here. It's going to look pretty cool. I hope. In my head, it looks cool. All right, everybody. Our GoPro is done. It's smoking SD cards. It's rough right now. We did call GoPro yesterday. They said something about needing to update our camera, so we did that. I'm waiting for my SD card to get back here, so I'm back to my phone again. But I did want to show you guys, I'm getting these shocks mounted back here. I had a little piece of scrap bar, that one right there, that was already bent on one end. I bent the other end. I wasn't sure if it was going to be in the right spot. When I place it, you can see I got the mark there, and I have one on the other side right there. This bar was too far back. I did a bunch of research last night on like positioning of shocks and stuff. What they said is you need to have them essentially as far out on the axle as possible and almost perpendicular. There can be some lean back or lean forward, depending on how much, I guess, travel you have in your suspension kind of deal. Essentially because your suspension is kind of moving on a little bit of an arc. This is leaf sprung in the back, so I'm guessing that's why he's having issues, because he has the same style shocks right there already, and they're leaned way far forward. So what it said online was that the compression dampening lessens the more of an angle you get it at, so you really want them straight up and down. So I'm going to bend a new bar that sits just behind, let me see if I can get you, just behind this axle, so I can put my tabs off the front of it, and it'll still clear this radiator hose, the fans, and everything. And then those shocks are going to mount essentially right there, as straight up and down as I can get them. There's going to be just a slight teeny lean back just to make sure I stay away from this fan. But that bar will be further forward. You can see my marks there. It's going to be about another 5 inches forward, so I can get those shocks to mount almost perpendicular. So I'm making tab mounts right now for the axle side. That's the piece right there, the pieces. So what I do is I take my Plows, I lay out the design I want, and I cut both sides of it. And then if you look at this, that's actually 4 pieces stacked together. I put all 4 of them together, grind them, drill everything while they're together as, you know, one, not really one piece, but stacked on top of each other. That way everything's identical. There's no question about whether you know, the shock's leaning a little because one tab's smaller or bigger than the other, something like that. These are all dead on because I've ground all sides of it smooth again. I'm gonna drill a 1/2-inch hole right here because he's got a 1/2-inch bolt that's gonna go through there. That way I can get these tacked to the axle. Then I'm gonna bend this upper bar up here. I'll try to, I don't really have a stand for, oh, I do have a stand for my camera, huh? For my phone, I mean. So I'll get that set up so you guys can see my bender. I did, like I said, I bent the other side of this tube yesterday, just trying to see. That's my hydraulic bender. It's an air over hydraulic. You plug the air in right there. So you just step on the pedal and it pushes. This is called a one-shot hydraulic bender. It's from, what are they called? Pro Tools, I believe is what the name of the company is. We'll see if we can find a link to it and put it in the bottom in case you guys are wanting one of these. It works really good. It only bends 90s. It doesn't do 180s. They have another brand, another model that does 180s. I bought this thing so many years ago. My cylinder was leaking last time I went to use it. I called the company. They don't even make that cylinder anymore. They're like, dude, this thing is so old. They're like, how do you even have this still? I used the crap out of this thing. It's worked really good. I built so many roll cages and bumpers with it. Like I said, this did start leaking. I was getting some slop in it. So I had to rebuild that. The company doesn't have it. I went to my local hydraulic shop. They didn't even know how to pull this thing apart. They're like, we don't even know. I finally got it figured out. Me and a buddy, we sat here one night and looked at it. And he's like, there's essentially a screw in the back here and a screw in the back here, and there's a spring that pulls tension in the middle of it. So the spring pulls the tension back after you actually use the hydraulics to push it that way. The spring pulls it back that way. That's what the two screws are. There's like a cap on this end and a cap on this end where the spring pulls it back and forth. And both these tubes are hollow where that spring goes through. So I did get it fixed. I went down. They had seals that were really close. It sealed up. It doesn't leak anymore. It works great again. So I got lucky. You know, I mean, that thing wasn't cheap when I bought it. And I bought it a long time ago, back when I built that when I was 19. That was the first thing that thing ever bent was that. And I did a couple Toyota Exo cages with it. But yeah, it's working great. So they still do make this. They just got a different hydraulic cylinder on the back of it now. They went to a different brand. So company's still out there. I'd say their tech support's a little iffy. When I called them, they really couldn't help me. So I did get it figured out on my own though. But yeah, so we'll be bending up that piece of tube back here. Like I said, I got to make a tire rack back here. So I'm going to be bending a bunch of tubes today. Once I get these, I got to get the shocks in first. The shocks are the first thing because he does have a test and tune, I think following week, not next week, but the week after. So I have like a week to get this done. So I'm hoping to get at least the shocks in it today and maybe a start of this back cage. I might just tack it together and then pop the tacks off to pull the cage part of it out for the spare tire back here. So he can go test this thing. Hopefully these shocks fix his problem because I think what's happening is those are not dampening enough because they're so steep of an angle. So we'll see. I'm going to leave them there. I'm going to call him and say, hey, do you want me to move these back to where the other ones are? I'll send him a picture of what I'm building. And he'll give me a yay or nay, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to get those tabs over there on the bench drilled so I can bolt them to that shock over there. We'll get the tabs tacked to the axle. I'll have to clean up the paint off the axle, get them tacked in place so I can start figuring out where I'm going to bend that essentially hoop for the shocks to mount to on the top. All right, everyone. Here's a little trick that I can kind of show you guys. You can see I put a washer right behind that plate. It gives me just enough gap so when I tack this and weld it out, even if this moves just a little bit, I can still get my bolt through and my shock can still get in between my mounts. Because we all know when you weld stuff, it warps, it moves, you know, that kind of stuff. I see a lot of people do this, so weld it, then they can't get it, and then they're fighting it, bending it, and then it ends up bending right here where the hole's drilled. So if you just put that little spacer in there, that a little amount that it moves will allow you to be able to get this shock in easier. Weld these out and still get your bolt through. When you pull the bolt out, the shock will come out easier. You'll be able to get it back in and stick your bolt back through the hole just by taking that washer out. When you tighten this up, it'll pinch down just a little bit and it works out really good. It's a real easy way to do it. I've done it on like a lot of bumper brackets and rocker brackets. Put a little washer in there, just gives you enough play to make it bolt back up way easier. All right, you guys, I'm going to, excuse me. So it been my first piece too. I did all my measurements, got everything marked. I got my square out. All I'm doing here, because I'm gonna have two perfect 90s, I'm lining up one side of my square against my die. Then as the tube starts bending, it'll bend around to here, and I'll go about a ½ an inch more because there's some essentially flex, some memory to the steel where it'll actually come back. So I'm gonna go ½ an inch past 90 out here on this end, which up here probably won't look like a whole lot, but out here, the further out you go, the more you're gonna see a bigger gap up here. So I'm just gonna run this through, might be a little loud. So like I said, I just got this against my die and I'm looking down my tube to see how much past 90 I am. I'm about 3/8 of an inch. There's about a half right there. So I'm gonna let this off. I'll put my square on the outside of it, make sure it's square. Then I'll flip it over and bend the other side towards the middle. You always bend towards the middle on my bender. Go get that done. All right, you guys. I got this back together. Well, I got the shocks and the shock mounts in it. There's more videos to come on this thing. Yeah, I still got to make a tire rack for the back. He needs some weight in the back end because, like I said, it likes to nosedive, kind of like my racer does. So I'll kind of show you what I got going on here, guys. So I got the shocks in. See, both shocks are in. I painted everything. Everything's bolted together. I did add these plates to the top, put a speed hole in them, one on each side. He's gonna have to deal with this because the rubbing right there, I think, is eventually gonna punch a hole through there. I'll talk to him about it. He knows a lot of this stuff is moving as I'm working. I talked to him. I just tripped over that. Those 2 blocks in my jack. Anyways, I talked to him today about this. It's in a bad spot. I don't like it where it's at. I'm gonna move it. I talked to him about it. He doesn't like the bracket that he originally made, so I'm moving it. It's gonna move forward because right here is where I'm gonna put the spare tire. I'm gonna bend some tubes, kind of like my racer. Similar. I haven't 100% figured out what I'm gonna do. I've been looking at a lot of like trophy trucks and stuff, how they mount their tires. I really like mine. It's just a different butt end on this thing, dude. I'm gonna have to come up with something else. It'll be similar, but not exactly the same. So that gas tank is gonna probably move forward. You can see there's a pretty good gap here. So I'm probably gonna try to push it up pretty close to this bar. Someday he might add another set of these shocks. I still have room down here to add another shock on both sides if he decides this isn't enough shock. He's gonna go test and tune in a couple weeks here. I think a couple weeks. I gotta figure that out. If it's like next week, I'm gonna have to temporarily put some brackets in here to hold this gas tank in place so he can go test. He's got a little bit of janky wiring right here for his fans. I disconnected one of the grounds when I cut the floor out. I also got to make a skid for underneath this gas tank just to deflect rocks and stuff as he's racing. He brought this piece of 16 gauge over. So we're going to do something cool with it. Partial sheet of 16 gauge, I guess. It might even be less than 16. No, I'm pretty sure it's 16. So I'm going to throw that on my bead roller. I'm going to roll some beads in it for him. Just give it some rigidity. And I don't know what I'm doing with this yet. I know it's going forward. I don't know if I'm going to use these brackets, if I'm going to use tubing. I really like the look of tubing. I just think tubing's cool. So yeah, that's going to go somewhere else. Still going to be there. It's just going to be further forward so I can fit this tire right here in this gap. Probably going to run a bar under and a bar over so we can drop the tire in from the top. We'll see though. That's my plans. You guys watch my videos enough. You know how I am. I say something, then I do something totally different. It's kind of what happens when I start building. I'm like, this looks way cooler. I'm going to do this. So that's kind of where we're at. Yeah, should work pretty good. I kind of jumped on the bumper on the frame right there, jumped on it, and this thing just goes boink and just stops. So I'm hoping it'll work pretty good for him. We kind of talked about those front shocks. Those might end up back here. We might have essentially quad shocks mounted on here down to the axle. So those might move up to this bar. We'll see. I'm hoping that now that these are in the right position, these back ones, he'll get a lot more dampening. I'm hoping it's not going to be too much. We'll see. Like I said, I don't know a whole lot about shocks and tuning and blah, blah, blah. I just can build some stuff. So that's kind of where we're at. I think we're going to call this a wrap for the shock mounts. He's going to go test it. There'll be another video right after this. Guys, keep watching because I'm going to build this tire rack back here. Some kind of like trophy truck kind of mounty thing. Okay, technical terms. But he is going to test this thing. If those other shocks are just too much, we may move them. We may take them out altogether. I hope it works like perfect for him because the angle on those front shocks, I'm hoping that they're going to be just enough dampening to make up for what these back ones don't have. We'll see though. It may work just like perfect. That's why we test and tune, you know? So, well, other people, I guess I kind of test and tune sometimes too, but I do it in my own property.